Hey guys, we're Lee and Jayla Hanberg. We are the District 5 chairs at the moment. We were the winners this last year of the Achievement Award. And we invited Mason and Erica Anderson to be on with us tonight.
Lee and Jayla, tell us a little bit about your guys' operation before Mason tells about his.
Okay. Lee, you do that part.
We are a crop, mostly just cash crops. We do alfalfa, grain corn, some sweet corn, a little bit of wheat, but we have a decent amount of acres out here in the Uinta Basin down by Pelican Lake. And that's pretty much our full-time life is farming. We got 3 little kiddos.
Sweet. All right, Mason, you're up.
Okay. I am Mason Anderson. We won the Achievement Award. Fortunate enough to win it 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago. A while ago. So my wife is Erica Anderson. We farm down in Millard County, Oak City. We do alfalfa, hay, wheat, and corn. Funny enough, I'm on the combine right now doing the wheat. So that's exciting. We have a cow-calf operation and then a small feedlot operation as well. And one little beautiful girl.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, Jayla, do you want to kind of give an overview of the purpose of why we're doing this call and what we hope to help everybody with while I'm sharing my screen?
Yeah, I feel like everyone always asks, how do we do this application? How do we make this application better? And especially this past year, Lee and I have gotten a lot of feedback on our application between state and nationals. And I feel like if we had had as much information going into the state competition as we did into the national one, like, wow, that would have been crazy beneficial. So, I guess what kind of.
We want to help you out with any questions that you might have on places that you might be hung up or things you need advice on in the application.
Perfect.
So yeah, just to throw out what the application's for. I mean, the best thing you can do is kind of read through the first couple pages of the application because that's gonna just line it all out for you. But your what am I trying to say? It's for those who get the majority of their income from farming.
Exactly. Yeah, so we ran into the situation last year. We had a couple that had applied and they'd actually filled out the Excellence in Ag application. Well, as we were coming through it and I was kind of helping them through, we realized that actually this would have been the first year that their own cows made them more money than their in-town jobs. And so they actually had to redo their application. So it's good to read through and kind of make sure you know which application, whether it's the Achievement Award or the Excellence in Ag Award, which one best fits you and your operation. It looks like Heather Kohlers was able to jump on. Heather, can you hear us okay? Maybe she's still getting connected. I know she was going to kind of have some spotty service. Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll kind of maybe Jayla, do you want to address the one question that or one of the questions that we got asked on social media in regards to applications?
Are you talking about the question about
Nominations or not?
nominations? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, not a nomination thing. Anybody and everybody that qualifies for this award or the EA award, and everybody does qualify for one of those awards. It just depends on which one. So anybody and everyone between the ages of 18 and 35, that have an interest in farming, really. Right?
Yeah. Yep, and you don't have to be nominated. We
Yeah.
want all the applications. And if you we're making this video hopefully as an aid, but if you need more help, there's contact information on the Farm Bureau website. We'll get to that in a minute when we talk about where you can find. Maybe we'll do that actually right now. Let me share a different screen here. Okay. All right, so if you just go to the utahfarmbureau.org website and you click on leadership and programs, and then you come over here to the side and click on young farmer and ranchers, and then awards and competitive events. It's taking a second to load here. And then under here we have, oh look, you may recognize this face from being in a combine. But we kind of have the different awards and a little overview of each award. So important to note that the deadline for this is September 26th at 5 p.m. So, and you just email it. It talks about it in the application too. Oh, Heather is here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Yes, you bet.
So Heather, while we have you, just because I know you have some other things going on tonight, thank you for jumping on. Do you want to just kind of give a brief introduction of yourself and kind of how you got to be so lucky as to be the one called upon to help us?
You bet. So my name, like I said, is Heather Kohler, and my husband and I love the YF&R, first of all. We totally believe in this program. We were one of the many that were voluntold that we were the new YF&R chairs of our county. Okay, anyways, and so we just kind of got started thrown into the loop and just started taking every opportunity to be in leadership after that, and ended up serving on the national YF&R board, where we got to travel back to DC and to several different states, be part of the national conventions. And my sector was the applications. That was with the EA and the AA applications. So that's the side that I kind of worked with the most. I got to sit in the interviews for the AA applications and kind of be there to help out the judges and kind of just be their runner, whatnot, and be able to kind of listen to how those interviews go, what they're looking for. And it was just a super valuable experience. And I wanted to bring that back and be able to help you guys if I can, and try to give you some wisdom of things to think about when you're doing your applications. So is that good?
Yes, that's perfect. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah, you bet.
While we have you and kind of from a judging perspective, you helped us judge last year. One thing that I thought we would do is just kind of run through the rubric real quick and maybe just kind of section by section, maybe you could highlight some things that stick out to judges for the good or for the bad in just your experience.
Okay.
So, you get to the rubric on the same page, under that leadership and programs, YF&R awards and competitions, and then the achievement award. And right here on the bottom, this is where all the information is for you. We've got the deadline, the application. We have it in a doc or so you can fill it out in Word. And that's a good time, isn't it, Mason? Filling it out in Word.
Super fun. Yeah.
I would recommend that you fill it out in Word, not in Open Water or OneNote, or I know that sometimes it's hard for people to get technology, but if you have technology problems, reach out and we can help you, right, Mason? We like to provide all the technology help.
Sakia is, we were the hardest for Sakia, so she can do anything now.
Absolutely. Just kidding. But anyways, right here's the rubric, and this just kind of combs through. Let's see if we can make it just a little bit bigger. Kind of combs through the different sections that are in the application. So with that, we'll just kind of run right through it. I would honestly recommend at least from my perspective, and Jayla and Mason, you guys could attest to this probably, but starting looking at the rubric and having the application kind of pulled up so you can see would be very helpful. Would you all agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one, we'll just kind of go through, and as you guys have things, please jump in. But personal background. They want you to tell about yourself. The one thing that you have to remember, I've had people turn their application in and I've had to email them back and say, hey, remember this needs to be in third person. It's not something that you can do. Me and my husband Mason from Utah, they want the judges to be as subjective as possible. And so they don't want any identifiers. So anything that says, we live in the Uinta Basin, or we live in central Utah, or I went to Utah State, they want you to leave all of that out. So you could say instead something like, I live in a rural community, or I attended a land grant university, or, whatever. But that's one thing to think about as we start combing through kind of what this looks like. But yeah, just well-written answers that give the judges a strong sense of who you are and that you really know your application. Or I mean your operation, excuse me, that you really understand your operation and that it's truly yours. We had a applicant a couple years ago that it was kind of the operation was kind of in the middle of succession planning and maybe was more the father's operation than it was the kid's operation. And so they really want to hear that specifically what your involvement is on the operation. Is that a good way to explain that, Heather?
Oh yeah, I would 100% stand behind what you just said there. We want to know it's yours. We want to know what is your level of involvement, like how have you taken ownership in this application? And is this EA and AA today, Sakia, or is this just AA? Or
We're
this is
just
both?
doing AA, yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so with this, we do I mean, if it comes up and it's all about, like you said, like the father-in-law, right? Like, my father-in-law and I do this and we do that and we do that. Take ownership for what you do, not necessarily what you guys do together. Be like, you can say it asks right in there, like kind of percentage of management that you actually have, right? And kind of like how many decisions are actually yours. So that will be asked later on. But when you're introducing yourself, just say, I'm the one that makes all the decisions about the AI that we get for cows and, all the stuff. Like, I mean, be really specific about your role and like how maybe what you've brought to the table. So even if it is you and your dad doing this still, make sure that you bring in your role and how much you do with it. Does it make sense? Make it yours.
Right. Okay.
But with that first section too, this
Yeah.
is pretty brief. This is like the teaser that makes us want to read more about you. So make it really storyboard, like make it fun to read. Does it make sense? It doesn't have to be like once upon a time. That's not what I'm saying, but like I don't want just like necessarily a list of who you are and your achievements. Like, give me something to read that catches my attention and makes me want to read more. So, and that kind of goes through with everything, but go ahead and continue, Sakia, sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually think Lee and Jayla, thinking about your guys' application, did we talk about the little red truck in your intro? Or did it come up later? Oh, did they?
I think it came up later. Sorry, I'm looking at our application right now. It's actually the little red check I think is in the next question, but yeah, so essentially.
But yeah, so kind of right there in the beginning, Lee and Jayla have a little red truck that they sell corn out of. And so, to Heather's point, something like that can give the judges a visual representation of you without being able to see you at all, right? Really making words come to life. So the next section 2 just kind of goes in again with just, what's the ownership structure? Like, are you the primary decision maker? And like I said, this isn't to say that you can't talk about an operation that maybe is in the middle of succession planning, because you definitely can, but we want to know what you are responsible for and what things, and giving examples of those. So really talking through some of those scenarios. So for example, on Mason and Erica's application, he's part owner of the operation. But his mom and his brother are also owners in the operation. And so throughout his application, he kind of walked you through that logistics and how that operation worked, but still, he didn't spend a lot of time telling about, oh, my brother does this and da 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 da. It was about what him and Erica do and what they've themselves have added or contributed to the operation too since taking ownership. Okay. Moving on to section 3. Wants to know growth and achievement. I would say this is something that applicants, a lot of times when they come to me, maybe have a little bit of struggle knowing, oh, I can't think of things that we've done or ways that we've grown, but I promise you that every operation is growing to some degree. This is where you just have to really sit down and ask yourself, okay, where were we a couple years ago? What was one thing that we did to change or make something better? And really talk through that and highlight that. Mason, can you guys remember, or Erica, can you guys remember this? I'm remembering talking about your pumpkins, but I think that might have been later.
Yeah, I think it was later, but it maybe just another thing. Ask people within your county or something that you're involved in that maybe you don't realize. Like, I didn't really even think about being involved in a landowners association for deer, for mule deer. So just things like that people know that you're aware of or involved in that you don't really even think about, because it's nothing terribly new and exciting to you, but it would be, to a judge somewhere.
And that'll come up later too as we talk about involvement and some of the things it wants to see there. But basically, in this growth and achievement section, wanting to see that there is growth to some degree in your operation. Does that mean that you can't highlight challenges? No, definitely not. I mean, we want to hear all of it, right? Erica,
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, ma'am.
So in that one, I'm looking at our application right now too, and that one we did a lot of like percentages so they did see our growth. So, we increased our alfalfa cropland and our cash crop by 59% within 2 years. So, like we said, different statistics there to help it look better too.
Right. And you can see how these are kind of building on each other, right? Like, tell us about your operation in the personal background. Then tell us about how you kind of make management decisions. And then tell us about how things have grown and things have changed from there. And Erica hit it right on the head. Putting things in a way that's easy for them to see, oh, that's growth. You could say something like, our sales were better for our wheat this year because prices were better and because we had higher yields. Okay, that's great. But if it was 15, saying higher yields versus we had 59% growth in yield, or growth in yield, like those are two very different things. And so putting the actuals there for them to see that, and that kind of says that here with clearly evident and strong examples. So thanks, Erica.
That does read really strong on an application when you can see measurable goals or measurable, like something that like shows the actual measurement that you have accomplished. Or I mean, it doesn't even have to necessarily be percentages. There's different ways you can do this, but something that we can see clearly the growth. So, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Get creative there.
Yes. Okay, this one just talks about management decisions. We've talked about that. This one, I believe, actually has a section where you can break out. So, for example, just because I brought this up earlier, but like Mason and Erica, like they do crops, they have some beef cows, and they also had a pumpkin patch, and amongst some other things like maintenance, like kind of each section of the operation. And they broke out, it has a chart for you to break out what percentage of the management decisions for that category are you making. So, for example, the maintenance, let's say Mason only does 40% of the maintenance and his brother does the rest, you can kind of outline that as a visual representation as well. And they have that chart in there for you to do that.
Sakia, that was one thing that Lee and I changed a lot between the state and national application was we just outlined all the things that we do, but didn't explain anything. And then through talking to Heather and other people, they were like, but if somebody's not doing what you're doing, they're not going to fully understand what you're talking about. And so then we went through and used the word count, used more of our space to explain a little bit better. Because, you know, the way that we do things here isn't going to be the same that, you know, even somebody does it on the other side of the state. So.
Absolutely. Well, and especially, I mean, when you get to a national level, you know, we're talking about in Utah, we're talking about a water quantity issue. Well, the rest of the nation's really, especially the eastern half of the country, is really concerned about water quality, right? And so just, you know, taking you out of your own world and explaining what you do in a way that people not from here can understand and people not in the industry can understand. Excellent. Okay.
That's where having somebody who's not in your industry read it is really valuable, because then they can be like, what are you talking about when you say this word here?
Yeah.
And then they can kind of help you troubleshoot those spots.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, the next section's goals and planning. We're gonna come through the application too, but I just wanted to start here. But what are some goals you have? Again, being specific, and this is something where you can break it out into A1 and A2. So for example, like Lee, for the Hamburg's application, Lee was A1, Jayla was A2. They would say Lee's goal, or not Lee's, but they would say A1's goals are to serve on the canal company board, da 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 da. A2's goals are to increase corn production revenue from their little red truck, da 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 da. So I just made those up, but kind of breaking those out so that they're specific. And I think really trying to, a lot of times we get an application come in and it's super heavy on A1, right? Like it's A1's application and A2's just there. But you have to realize that you guys are equal partners in this. And so making sure that you really think through that and making it appear that you are equal partners in this and that you both contribute to the operation, if that makes sense. 6 talks about resiliency. So it wants you to kind of identify challenges and things that you've had to overcome and talking through those. Jayla or Mason, Erica, do you guys remember what you put for here?
We talked about losing Mason's dad and how that kind of changed the look of the farm and things and that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of talks about that here and just like, you know, a succession plan. If you're in the middle of that, how does that work? Where are we at there?
On ours, we talked about drought
Yeah,
and how we were forced to, you know, incorporate wheat into our crop rotation in order to finish the year back in 2021, which this year, you know, would be kind of the same story. So.
right, right. So really just talking through how you comb through those. The financial part, there is 2 parts to the financial succession part. I'm actually going to skip over those because I think they're going to be easier to talk about when I have the application pulled up and we can see those financial pages. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's 3, that's kind of broken into 3 sections. We'll skip that for now.
Really quick with that financial page.
Yeah.
A lot of people I saw, like they kind of went with their financial advisor and they helped them kind of know what things to put in there. And in some cases, it actually hurt their financials from what they actually are. So does it make sense? Like make sure you include enough of your, because you know how sometimes our farms and our personal are all tied in together. If you look at the farm alone, it might look like you are just in major hurt, right? But if you're looking at kind of the assets and everything that's pulled in, that kind of starts getting personal and you don't know. Anyways, make sure your financials show your growth and show where you're really truly at and not make sure it paints a good picture. Does it make sense?
For sure. I remember this being a strong point for Mason and Erica's application because they were financially in a good way. And that's something that a lot of producers, especially young producers, maybe don't have the opportunity to be out of loans and out of debt or turning 100% profit on things like that. So explain that. But we'll go through those a little bit more when we get to the application. So this next part, these next couple sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 4 sections for the application is probably where I get the most amount of questions when people get to this part in the applications and they call me, hey, like, I don't know what to put for here. What have we done? I don't know. And so this is where I would say you've got to really pull out your thinking cap, sit down with your county president now or as soon as possible and figure out, hey, we want to do this application. We want some experiences to help build ourselves and build our application. So this section right here, and note that it's worth 30 points. I think this might be the heaviest, just scrolling back through here. Yeah, it's one of the heaviest sections in the whole application is your Farm Bureau leadership experience. So they want to know what quality and impactful experience have you had while serving in Farm Bureau. Now, does that mean that you have to be on the state committee? No, I've heard that a couple times over the past couple years is that only people that have been on the state YF&R committee ever win. That's not true. But Lee and Jayla, how many times had you guys turned your application in before you won?
3 years.
3 years. Mason and Erica, how many times had you guys?
I think we were 4 years.
For
Yeah.
4.
3 or 4 years is kind of the standard. But the good thing is, once you fill out this application once, it's really just taking the next year's experiences, adding them, making it better. The next year's adding them and making it better. So you don't have to restart it every year. It's something that you're continually building and continually trying to make better. So, and there's a lot of ways. So for example, I had a couple in one of my counties that they had an event they called Baby Farm Animal Days, and this individual was the tractor train driver. We can make a job out of that. That can be its own line. Instead of him just putting, blank County Farm Bureau member, I mean, that's a thing, but also he served on the Baby Farm Animal Days Committee as the tractor train driver. Like, there's ways that you can break out the things that you're already doing to really expand and help grow that Farm Bureau leadership experience section.
I will agree with that, Sakia, as far as like looking at the applications. It didn't matter what the level of involvement was with your application. It mattered that there was involvement.
Right.
So like, if your involvement was just a super small section, that doesn't read extremely well on a 30-point section, right? So
Right.
anything, you just get involved with your communities, get involved with your farm bureaus, take books to the school, just do all those little opportunities that you have that you can do and just put them in there. And like she said, give yourself a title, train tractor driver, like it all can go in there. So just find things and fill it up as full as you can.
And there's a lot of things that you like. Another thing I have is, hey, well, my county farm bureau is not as strong as X county. That's okay. You don't have to have the best county farm bureau organization. You don't have to come from the best county farm bureau organization to have these opportunities. You can go out and make these opportunities. If you need help figuring out any of those, contact me, contact your regional manager, contact your people on your state YF&R committee. We'll help you come up with these and help you have some opportunities to get involved. So the next one talks about leadership in other organizations or other agricultural organizations. So this is where Mason was talking about. He serves on the landowner association committee. What are some other things you guys put here?
Farm Service Agency, Irrigation Company, University Ag Drip Program, FFA judge for their discussion meet. Our Ag Expo committee member, our Corn Growers Association, all the things.
Yeah, see, that's great. if you do anything with 4-H, if you volunteer with
Yeah.
4-H, I mean, crime in Italy, if everyone doesn't have 4-H volunteer judge on their application, they are not trying hard enough, because I know every county 4-H in the state is always looking for volunteers to help judge a myriad of things. So volunteer your time a little bit, and that will help this section grow quite a bit too. That kind of flows into the leadership experience or other leadership experiences. So this kind of talks about outside of the agriculture sector and outside of Farm Bureau, how else are you being involved? So this is like county councils, church, any church callings, religious callings, anything like that that you might have, school board, I don't know what else did you guys put in here?
Yeah, all that.
Yeah. So trying to look for opportunities to help, hold some type of position in something, or be a part of, be a part of the Kiwanis Club, be, maybe you're the Lions Club, or whichever of those is great, or the library, PTA, or those kind of things. That's what it wants to hear there. Okay, last one talks about a leadership meaningful impact, or meaningful and impactful leadership experiences. So this one's kind of the story, wouldn't you say, of, tell us something, tell us a story. How have you grown as a leader? Why is your operation better because of it? How are you tying in, this is the last text box on the application. And so really, how are you tying in the whole application? How have you grown? How's your operation grown into helping you become who you are as a person? Really highlighting your goals is big here. Okay. We good on the rubric. We're gonna come back through the application quick.
And one thing, I'm going to add something in quick, and then I'm actually going to have to take off.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, you bet. Just with this and the application, I know a lot of times it starts to feel a little bit like redundant. Like some of your answers might start to be the same in some of the sections. Does it make sense? Because it helps to kind of paint the picture. But you can always come up with a new story or a new example. So even if it's the same example, same, main point, come up with a different way, different ways that you've done things. I don't know how to explain this.
Like instead of saying, one of my jobs is to feed the cows, and I feed the cows the same every day, Talk
Yeah.
about a time when you noticed how, when you incorporated more foliage into your mixture, and like,
Yes.
you don't have to say I feed the cows every day.
Yep. Yep. And because maybe you already said you fed the cows every day. Now talk about how adding that foliage into the mixture makes it so that it's, it improved it so much more, or what you learned, why that happened. Anyways, just make sure you can take the same idea and really expand on it and give us a better view of who you are and what you do by doing that.
Right. And wouldn't you say kind of the goal of the whole application is for them to really, once a judge is done reading it, for them to be able to look back, know your operation, and know how you work on your operation inside and out, challenges you have, over things that you've overcome, and kind of, financially at a high level where you're at on your operation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I'd say exactly that. Like the main things are kind of things that you've definitely touched on already, Sakia, is make sure we know you own it and what your part is in it. Make sure we get a really good picture and a full picture of what you do. Add details and own your greatness. I know that's kind of sounds crazy, but like, don't go in there and be like, well, I only did this, Don't be like, I did this and I learned so much from just that. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, but make sure that you own how cool it is that you did that in particular. Does it make sense? Like whatever extra education you received, make sure that you take ownership for that. Be proud of it and be proud of who you are in the application. It really shines through when you show your passion and your love for learning and growing with your operation.
Absolutely. Heather, before you go, we're just going to talk about the interview process. I know this year we've changed it, and Lee and Jayla can talk a little bit about that. But from a judge's perspective, do you have any tips going into the interview process?
Make sure you know your stuff. Like if it's on your application, we're going to ask you about it. So make sure you're ready
And
to
on
talk
both
about
parties, right? Both
Both,
parties.
yes, exactly,
If the
both
finance
parties.
couple need to know.
Yep, yep, because this is an application. If both of your names are on it, make sure you both can answer the questions. And then when you're in that interview process, just make sure that you both speak up. Give each other turns to speak up. You know, like if it's something that your husband can speak to better than you can, then make sure he's the one that's speaking to it. If it's something you feel like you can, and maybe he started saying something, you feel free to pipe in and add something to it. You know, within that question, make sure your voices, both of your voices are heard if you're both on the application. And if you're just on the single one on the application, just really know your stuff. And be proud of yourself. Like I said, own your greatness. You guys have amazing things that you are doing on every single farm and ranch that is out there. There's amazing things happening. You don't realize how cool it is. And especially sitting in there with the financial guys, I mean, as much as they see it on the finance side, they're not living the day to day. Like there's so many neat things you guys are doing, and it really shines in that interview process. So just own your greatness.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you and all the work that you have done.
Oh, you bet. I'm glad I could help. So hopefully it helped.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll see ya. Bye.
Lee and Jayla, do you guys want to talk about maybe a couple questions or kind of give us an overview of, okay, I turned my application in. What does the process look like on the state level?
Sorry, Sakia, I don't understand what you're asking. Do you want to know about the application or the interview or?
So just kind
Sorry.
of walk us through the process once you've turned your application in, up through the interview at the state level, and maybe even up through convention. What can you expect? So yes, the interview, that kind
Okay,
of
okay, sorry. I was like in my head
probably
thinking
didn't
of
explain
the
that
things
well.
I wanted to say when Heather was speaking, but then also, anyways. Yeah, I don't know, turn your application in. Is it, everybody gets an interview or is it
Yeah.
just the top 10? Top 10? Top 5? I can't remember.
Thus far, it's been everybody gets an interview, and that's kind of dependent on how many applicants we get. But as of right now, everyone gets an interview.
Okay, yeah, so I think it was you reached out to us and we received an email and we made an appointment time to
Do our
do
interview.
the interview. And that's kind of fun. It's typically you'll go out and everybody will do their interview and then you all go to dinner together and it's kind of a fun time to get to know everybody else that goes and does that. This last year we had to get home, so we didn't get to do that. That was kind of disappointing. Just kidding. But so we went out, did our interview. This year they did the interviews differently, like you said. And so we've done 2 interviews the other way.
Yeah.
And then we did this year we did the interview this way, and honestly we loved it so much more. These judges, they really were very familiar with our application. They knew all about our application. They knew all about us. Critiques that we received there after the fact were that in our application it was kind of more about Lee and they feel like they got to know Lee a lot better. But then in the interview, they felt like they got to know me a lot better and less of Lee. So just be aware of that and kind of so that you are able to just have you both be equal in all the places. So that was one thing, like with our application, we went back through and made sure that I put me in the application a lot more and yada yada, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that's great.
What else are you want?
What kind of questions are they asking in the interview?
Just kind of just wanted to know more about our application. That was also, sorry, back to Heather sat down and had breakfast with us after convention, after we had won, and because then it was crunch time to get our national application ready. And the biggest thing, our biggest takeaway that from there with her being one of the judges and the other judges was just to not be afraid to write more in the application. She said there were so many places where we gave her the information, but she was like, I want more, give me more. So that was the biggest thing too, I feel like in the interview, is they just kind of wanted us to expand. They're like, you said that you're interested in expanding your sweet corn this year. Tell us like which specific ways you are wanting to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Um,
a lot of the interview is just clerical questions, right? They want to know,
Yeah.
hey, you talked about this experience, tell us more about it, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, and I think too, they really appreciated that we were like excited about our operation and wanted to tell more about our operation and explain it more. Does that make sense? Uh, instead of being kind of not sure, I guess.
Right. And Mason, maybe you guys can, Mason, Erica, you guys can chime in on where our process differs a little bit, and pretend that you had we've upgraded the interview experience like Lee and Jayla mentioned from when Mason and Erica won. But Mason, maybe you and Erica can talk about, so Mason and Erica were top 10 at nationals, and only the top 10 at nationals get interviewed. And so talk about, if you guys would mind sharing a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it was, so first of all, they were just people, right? So they were bankers. I think we kind of psyched ourselves out a little bit. As like Heather alluded to, I mean, know your operation, which if there's anyone that should know your operation, it's you. So don't be afraid to speak up and talk about your operation, things that you do, things that you've improved on. They've read your application, they know what's going on,
Right.
but they just want, and they want a little more detail. If I could just say, add to what Jayla was talking about, absolutely use all the characters that you can in each of those boxes to highlight what you have and get rid of any kind of fluff. And I mean, because sometimes you feel like it's an English paper in high school that you're just trying to fill the information. And if it's your first year, that's great. Do it. Just get it down. But then continue to revise it. Continue to put meat and potatoes in there rather than just fluff.
Absolutely. So we'll come through this. Just one more thing I saw on here that I think is worth mentioning is just that you've got to be between 18 and 35. So we had an instance a couple years ago. This couple had applied as a couple one year. The next year, the husband turned 36. And so the wife had to apply by herself. And so just note that even if one of you in the couple is in the age, as soon as one of you ages out, it has to be your own application, if that makes sense. So both of you have to be within 18 to 35 to apply. Okay, so kind of comb through here. You guys can read this, but this talks a little bit more about the application must be in first person narrative. I think I said third person earlier. I meant first person. So you can say I, me, we, A1, A2, but don't say my husband Mason, blah blah blah. So this also kind of talks about how they want you to use abbreviations and that kind of thing. I mean, that's getting into the nitty-gritty. It kind of goes through the points allotted for each section and some other things. Remember the deadline, September 26th.
Can I interject with that, Sakia?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm going to anyways. To make that be powerful, I would say that first person. So like on a lot of ours, kind of an opening, you almost give an opening statement like, I made us 10,000 more dollars by doing X. I made us grow this enterprise by 30% by doing X. And so it's really uncomfortable to do that. Like talking to somebody about that because you just feel like you're bragging, but there's really no other way to showcase what you've done by not doing that.
Right. Absolutely. And that's a great point in just the language of how you do things. So this is the first page of your application. I'm going to see if I can get it all on one page. Can you guys still see that okay? I'm going to keep rolling unless you tell me no. This is just wants to know your information. When you turn your application into the state, we delete this first page. So the judges are really starting to see it here. So note that, kind of different from the rubric, this kind of breaks down that first section, personal background, into some more clerical questions. So here, tell us about yourself, your family, education, and personal interest. And you have 2,000 characters to do that. Now, Jayla,
And
this is a
spaces,
pop quiz.
spaces are characters.
Spaces and periods and commas and apostrophes are characters. So Lee and Jayla turned their application in. We're submitting it to AFBF, and we had to cut like probably all said and done 5,000 characters out of their whole application because
After knowing at the state one that we needed to add a bunch, so then we added a bunch, and then we had to take more away.
Yeah, so make sure you're using not a word counter but a character counter to help you in this. And you can Word has one. You can also, I think it's in this review tab. Somewhere in here has it. But you can also just pull up Google, copy and paste the sections in. So don't worry about formatting too on any of this. All I want is your stuff in there. That's all we care about. But so kind of breaks it down. Briefly tell us about yourself, family, education, personal interest. How I think we'll do this just for interest of time is I'll just kind of comb through these. If you guys have specific things you wanted to point out that you added or something that you feel like was really good to put in a section, just shout it out. Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then it goes, so still in that section 1 of, kind of who are you, talks about describe your operation, how you acquired it, the acres owned and rented, years in operation, crops and livestock, breaking that down. And then further list any other related business enterprises that are in relationship to or important to the total farm and ranch. So give us an example of something that you guys put here.
This is where we put our pumpkins in the landowner association.
Okay, so something that like you growing the pumpkins is not your whole operation, but it's an additional thing that you do that relates to your operation.
Mm-hmm.
Lee and Jayla, what'd you guys put?
Which one are you on?
1C.
Sorry.
You're good.
This is where we talked about our sweet corn and my wheat arrangements.
Right. See, so they grow wheat, but their operation is not Jayla's wheat arrangements, but it's something that's added to, right? Even though
Yes.
something could be your operation. And then this last one for section 1, tell us how you advocate for agriculture. So there's, 4 questions that's basically giving your personal background, right? All right, section 2 talks about the ownership of your farm and ranch and where your vested interests are, include all enterprises. So this is where, again, you're going to want to include the wheat arrangements, the pumpkin patch, the, whatever, da-da-da. And then further for B, section 2B, you're going to break down each of those enterprises and the management decisions that you get to make. So, for example, like Jayla probably makes 100% of the management decisions for the wheat arrangement enterprise. Whereas the corn growing, the corn part of the enterprise, Lee probably makes, 50% if his dad's still involved or whatever, right? So you're going to kind of go through and list those out and figure that out. One question I get asked is, can we add lines to this or take them away? No. This is what you have. You have 10 lines. Make 10 work.
So we didn't use C, and that was one of our critiques, was Heather's like, hey, use this area, add more detail, add more to this, let me know more. What does this mean? Break it down. So
yeah, because
See.
you'll notice this says if needed. That's
yes,
my
but it's
teacher,
always needed.
right. My FFA teacher said if they provided a space for you, they want to hear something in it. So put something in the box. So put something there. Great point. 2D talks about describe your role in the operation. So again, this is kind of where when Heather said sometimes things can sound redundant, we've talked about the scope and your role in management decisions, but They want to know specifically your duties in what decisions you make and what things you get a say in. All right, section 3 talks about growth and achievement. So note this first thing right here. Tell the story of your farm growth since your first year of owning and managing your operation. Okay, this is a story, right? This is where they want it to be interesting. They want you to captivate them a little bit and really, this is a super good opportunity. And note, I mean, this is more characters than any section has been. They really want to know about your operation and why it's yours and how you've made it yours since you've been in ownership or management of it. Okay. 3B talks about production efficiency growth that you've achieved. So, how have you grown? How have things changed? How have they grown? Kind of factoring in how you have made decisions that have affected growth. Okay, for example, we decided to switch to this fertilizer instead of this, or we decided to incorporate cover crops, and that has in return done XYZ elemental P for us, or we decided to get involved in a landowner operation, and that has in return done this for us. Those are just some examples.
And we put numbers in that on ours too.
Great. Numbers are always great when you can show growth in numbers, right? Because everyone can understand that. Okay. 4, this is where we're talking about management decisions. Again, we kind of, you have this chart up here that highlights a percentage. We're gonna tell a story about those. So please explain how your understanding of the ag market has led you to create strategies and make different decisions for the future. So note this part, discuss up to 2 impactful strategic or management decisions you have made on the farm and ranch, why you made them, and what has resulted in them. So being specific, right? I want to know the story about why you decided to apply for an ag water optimization project or a ag drip VIP project and how that's changed your operation, right? Okay, section 5 talks about goals and planning. So what short-term and long-term goals do you have? Like I said, this is one that you could put A1, A2. So you could do a list of A1 and it's a paragraph. And then A2 paragraph, or A1 goal, 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 A2 goal, 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 goal. So a couple different ways you could do that.
So on that one, we actually did short-term and long-term.
Perfect.
It was how we did that, and we put very specific time limits on what we wanted to do. It was within the next year we would like to, or
Right.
that type of thing. And then also one thing that we were told to was just don't be afraid to make your goals really big. Like,
Yeah.
don't sell yourself short. You can do really cool, awesome, big, amazing things.
Right.
So don't be afraid to write those down.
Absolutely. And I like how you guys put short term, long term, breaking it out. Even though, don't be afraid to format it a little differently like that, like these guys are saying. I mean, don't get crazy, but and just think of, we've all heard the term a SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, and timely.
Yes.
Focus your goals into that category, right? So this one talks about section 6 talks about resiliency. So any major changes or challenges that you've had, how did you overcome them? Maybe it was a policy thing that made you have to do things differently. Like, for example, this could have been a drought thing. I think Lee and Jayla talked about drought for theirs right here. Maybe it's a family management decision, or you've had a death in the family. Those are things that you can talk about here. And just kind of further explain that, describe the transition or succession plan you have for your farm or ranch. If you don't have either, please explain. You probably should have some type of something, whether you got it from your parents or if that, kudos to you if it's your own operation that you're starting up, but what do you want that to look like for your kids coming up, right? Okay. financial success. So this is the part I said we would skip on the application and we would, or in the rubric, and we would talk about it right here. So it talks about this chart and immediately it looks really intimidating and scary. But it's not that bad once you get into it. Am I right? They said yes.
Yep, yep,
Good.
you're right.
So in this, you're gonna put the first year that you started on the operation. So I get the question a lot. Okay, well, what if I went on a mission or had a leave of absence for a couple years? I would say the first year on your operation is like when it started to become your sole job. So like, let's say you had an operation, you worked on it through high school. I would say that probably doesn't count. If you want to fight me on that, that's probably fine. But they want to know like that you have numbers to show for it. So that's why I say typically it starts that first year after your mission if you've stayed on an operation that long. So you might put in here like 2016. Oh, there's my numbers. And then you'll put in here total debt. So combined farm and ranch and personal debt. So that might be something like 2,560,000 something numbers, whatever. And then the assets between, and this is where Heather was talking about, don't just put the farm stuff. It wants your personal assets too. Where are you at with that? Maybe that's you have a house and you have a couple other things, and maybe it's $5 million. And then you got to do this math right here, total debt divided by total assets, come up with the number. And you're going to do that from the first year. And even if that was 2016, then you're going to go 3 years ago, which would be 22, and then 23, 24, and then 25's year-end projection. So where you're projecting to be for the end of 25. And this is where if you have a banker, you can go meet with the banker. They can help you kind of figure this out. One thing to note too is like, so say that like I talked about Mason earlier, where he is not the only person on their operation. His mom has ownership and his brother has ownership. And so that's important to note here of whether this is the whole operation or it's just the portion of the operation that you make management decisions for. So does the difference between those make sense to you guys? It should be. If you have any questions, reach out to one of us and we'll help you. But just know which one of those is different and then you'll just click that box. So again, if they give you a space to talk about it, use the space. So talk about an explanation or give an explanation of any irregularities or strategies used. Talk about that. So you might say, in 2022, we had a horrible drought. We had to fallow a couple fields. That's seen here as to why we had to sell off a piece of property. That's why our assets are lesser or whatever. Okay. So this is probably that chart doesn't scare people as much because it's pretty self-explanatory. This one I think is where people get the most scared. Same thing, put the first year you guys came on, and then your farm and ranch income, and then this asks for plus all other farm and ranch related income. So for example, talking about Lee and Jayla, Lee's gonna put money he gets from corn, wheat, if he had cows, whatever. But then right here, Jayla could also put the money that she gets from the sweet corn, the money that she gets from the wheat arrangements, and then you're just adding those two together. And you're going to do that for the last couple of years. So maybe she didn't start doing the wheat arrangements until last year. So she's only going to put it in this line, right? So that's kind of your total income. Then it wants to know your expenses. So same thing. Where are you at with your expenses? What's the interest on those? What's the depreciation? Add those together as your total expenses. And then this is simple. You're just taking this total income box putting it right here, and then this total expenses and putting it right here, and then that's going to give you your profit. And then again, just indicating whether it's the portion of the operation or whether it's what you own or the portion that you make management decisions for. Just make sure that that's the same. So if you only are invested into the operation 10% and you're only talking about your 10% finances, make sure that you indicate that. Because that looks differently than if you have 100% of the operation and you're trying to say that you have management decision and management say over all of that, but you haven't addressed that in your application, right? So we just want to know which for sure you're talking about. Okay, again, explain any irregularities or strategies. So same thing, jail or A2 didn't start our wheat arrangement operation until last year. That's why you might note that our income for, the years X to X have been lesser, right? Something like that. And then you do need your banker to sign off on this, or someone that can just verify that your numbers are correct. And then you need to get it notarized. Typically, if your banker will also be a notary, that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, that was kind of a lot on the charts, but if you just slow down, read what it says, think about it, it's not too bad, hopefully. Did you guys have anything on the charts before we move to just the words? Okay. Okay, I think we're good. All right. This next part is where you get to use words instead of numbers. So they want to talk about practices you've used to elevate the financial succession of your operation, including ratios, analysis, record-keeping systems, or advisors used to support your operation. So, hey, you know what? Dad had always done the records for our cows in a log notebook, blah, blah, blah. We now do it electronically. We use herd manager or whatever, or we have, something could be, we have quarterly or weekly or monthly management meetings where it's not just a family dinner, but we talk the operation, what are we projected, what are some goals, what are some things we have, and how that's made you financially more successful, hopefully, right? Again, here talking about strengths and weaknesses. It can be hard to talk about weaknesses on an operation, but nobody knows your operation better than you. And note, when the judges look at this, they don't know who you are. You're just applicant number 4. So be real, share real stories, and share what's going on. So this talks about, do you have any other farm and ranch business income not otherwise shown in the financial statements, such as supporting agribusinesses? Erica, what did you guys put for this one? Because this would be on-farm income.
And 9, part 3.
Or A.
Oh, yeah, part 3A. We put none.
None.
We just have none.
You had none. But in part B, you put piano lessons, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay. Erica teaches piano lessons, so for this part B, off-farm income. And how do you use that? It fuels the cuteness of their little girl by buying her all the things that she needs, right?
Yes. Yes, we're all
Okay.
spoiled. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then C, just additional income, if any. So inheritance, or my daughter's in all these baby contests, and so we get a lot of money from those. Just kidding.
I wish.
Right. I would say this one probably gets left blank. Just because that may not, or just gets put as something as like, this does not apply to us. We have not received any inheritance winnings. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, ours is blank.
Yeah, yours is blank. Okay. Okay, so then this is where we talk about this in the rubric. leadership experiences. List your Farm Bureau roles. So this kind of has an example of what this could look like. Now, note where it says list, they only want a list. They don't want paragraphs. They want it to look like A1 and then oh, well, they have an example right here. So they want it to be this. If I can use my right things. And then the next thing, boom. The next thing, boom. And then down here, then you'll change it to, whoops. Then they want you to change it to A2. And then we'll talk about, this is you, this is your spouse, and list all the things. So you'll list everything in the County Farm Bureau section, and then in the State and American Farm Bureau section. And this can be something like if you've come on the tour of Utah, or you went to DC with us, or you've been to YF&R conference, like those things can be in this state thing. Or if you went to an AFBF Fusion conference or an AFBF YF&R, you can put those here. Or a national convention, if you went to convention when it was in Utah, you can put that here. Okay, trying to keep it as close to an hour as possible, but 11 just talks about other organizations. So, and it kind of gives you some examples: soil conservation districts, farm credit, farm service agency, cooperatives, adult roles, if you're in 4-H or FFA alumni, and same thing. They want lists, so listing them out this way. So again, I would break it out A1, A2. If there's things that you both do, like this has here, A1 and A2 serve as this. You can either do that. I honestly think it's probably better to just list A1, 4-H Livestock Club Leader, A2, 4-H Livestock Club Leader is probably how I would do it. I think it just reads better that way. And then 12, basically the same thing, but this is just your other community non-agriculture things. So again, here's some ideas: Chamber of Commerce, church, scouts, coaching, if you're like the football coach, the PTA president, whatever you are. Again, we're listing those here. So 10, 11, 12, they're all lists. And then 13, I think this is the last section, I believe. Whoa, sorry. Really scrolled up there. 13 just wants to know your leadership, growth, and development, right? So describe your most impactful leadership experience and any actions that you've taken to better yourself. So this is a huge let them know who you are. Pull the onion layers back, show them who you are, show them how you've immersed yourself in your operation and how that's changed you, something that's changed on your operation that you've implemented in your life, something like that. And then 13B, describe your goals for leadership and development. So where do you want to be? So for example, I think Lee and Jayla put on their application, they want to be they wanted to be, at the time they were just district or county YF&R chairs. One of their goals was to be district YF&R chairs and to be state YF&R chairs. So being very specific, we talked about that with your goals for leadership development and growth. And these are just goals, right? So shoot for the moon. If your goal is to be President of the United States of America, put it on there. If that's your goal, right? Put whatever your goal is. Maybe it's the cattleman's president. Maybe it's the FSA board chair. What have you.
Okay, ours was not to be the president of the United States, but we broke this into 4 sections. So we did our state farm bureau, what we wanted, our goals for that, our county farm bureau, what our goals for that, our community, and the church.
So you guys basically flipped the application back on itself and took the things that they'd asked from 10, 11, 12, and redid it. Or like
Yep. Put our goals for that. Yep.
I love that. That's a very specific way to do it. So good on you guys. Great job. For this 13B. So remember that you can, flip it back, use their own application for your betterment. So that's the application in a whole. I'll scroll back up to the top here. If you guys have questions, maybe one place I'll jump over quick is just the Oh, I gotta find it now. I might have exited out. If you guys have any questions, there is a contact page on. Oh, sorry, I just gotta find it. I got too many screens open. Oh heavens, sorry. It's not letting me share the right thing here.
Can I just say while you're finding that, Sakia, if there's
Please.
anybody that's made it this far in this video, you should get a treat.
Yes, if you have made it, here, we'll do this. If you have made it to the end of the video, email the email. Oh, here we go. Email the email that you have to send your applications to right here and said, I made it to the end of the video and I will send you a prize. And it's a good prize. I give out good prizes, right? Mason and Erica, Lee and Jayla.
Yeah, can we email the email?
Yeah, for sure, we made it.
Yes, you guys can email the email. We'll give you some Farm Bureau swag. I'll send you a swag basket if you made it to the end of this. So, thank you all for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Oh, if you do have a question or feel like you need some help, you can email UFBFawards@gmail. You also can, come right here to Young Farmers and Ranchers and contact us. And your state chairs and their information are on here, and this will be updated. But you can reach out to them and they can help you as well as my phone number and email are on here too. So thank you all. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And have a wonderful night.